A Very Present Help by Roger Fruchey. Chapter 1. The Davidsons' Homestead. Raising his rifle slowly and deliberately to his shoulder, it was as though Pa was moving in slow motion as he fixed his rifle in place. Hardly making a sound, he cocked the trigger of his muzzle loader. He only had one shot, and he had to make it count. Wildlife flourished in the woods that surrounded the Davidsons' homestead, and venison was a staple meat on the family's table. The large white-tailed buck raised its head, alerted by the unfamiliar click. Instinct warned the buck of Pa's presence, and it was instantly ready to bolt away into the protection of the dark forest. One moment of delay from Pa and the deer would have been gone. In that split second, Pa fired. Back at the homestead, Ma was busy with the chores. Chopping wood, gathering eggs, feeding the animals, and tending to the garden were among the everyday jobs that had to be done before she could start supper. Pa would normally help with the chores, but today he was hunting. A large buck would provide the small family with enough venison for a month or more. The hide would be tanned and made into buckskin, and any meat that was not consumed right away would be smoked and salted in the smokehouse and then wrapped in brown paper to be stored in a cool, dry spot for winter. This was called jerky. It was early autumn on the American frontier, and severe cold weather had not yet set in. It was a pleasant time of the year. Pa had cleared 2 acres of land for a good-sized crop that he had planted last spring. The planting season was now pretty much over, but there was still a harvest to be gathered. Produce like pumpkins, potatoes, apples, and nuts would keep for months if stored properly. Ma canned food as well, but reliable canning jars and lids were hard to come by and expensive. Not to mention that a trip into town and back was a day's journey by mule and buggy. William Davidson and his wife Catherine had 2 children, an adventurous 11-year-old son, Joshua, and his 3-year-old sister, Sarah. They had sailed from the Netherlands to the new land in search of a new life in this unexplored country of opportunity. William arrived back home as dusk was setting in. He looked tuckered out, but pleased, as he confidently situated his rifle on the gun rack above the door frame and removed his hat and slapped it on his leg. "So did you get one?" queried Catherine with a knowing grin. "I sure did, Katie," William replied with a smile. "Oh, good," smiled Catherine. "I knew you would. I'll roast a good bit of it for supper tonight. You must be tired, dear, so just sit there by the fire and relax while I get supper on the table," Catherine instructed. Catherine was a good cook. And like most women of her day, she was also knowledgeable of herbs and spices and their culinary and medicinal uses. 3 years earlier, in 1783, General George Washington led the Continental Army to victory over the British at Yorktown, Virginia, ending the American Revolution. After 7 years of struggle, the colonists were now free of British domination, and an infant nation was born from the seeds of war. Immigrants from Europe now flooded to the shores of America. Some sought freedom, some adventure, while others sought wealth and personal gain in this new land of opportunity. Joshua Davidson was only 8 when his family arrived on the shores of this untamed American frontier. Josh had celebrated his 12th birthday last spring, but despite his youth, He was aware of the suffering and anguish that the war had caused. During the night, he would overhear his father lamenting over the fighting between the colonists and the British to his ma. Joshua's father was a man of faith, and it grieved him to see men with so much of the same heritage and traditions slaughter one another so on the battlefields. Some of the so-called soldiers are mere boys, still in their teens, and yet they are dying, said Pa sorrowfully. They died before they had a chance to realize what living was about. It's just not right, Katie. The war may be over, said Pa, but as long as these selfish, greedy men continue to grab more territory by ruthlessly driving the natives from their own lands, this land will never have peace. The native people of this land deserve to be respected, declared Pa. Political tensions posed a formidable problem for the new government of New Jersey and Philadelphia. Continental Army troops continued to patrol the streets of Burlington after the war to subdue any remaining pockets of resistance, giving the city a tense atmosphere. But Josh was far removed from all this on the solitude of his family's farm. He was well adjusted, and his time was occupied with his schooling, helping with the chores, and exploring the beautiful countryside with Butch, the family's big brindled watchdog. Josh couldn't remember ever being without Butch. To Josh, Butch had always been part of the family. He loved him not only because he was a faithful companion, but also because he was a loyal and courageous guardian.
The end of Chapter 1. To be continued.